last word.
Gentleman is recognized.
I thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate Ms. Jackson Lee, who reminded us that the crux of today's hearing is to protect children at schools. And I think that is really important. And I think the reason that Mr. Shabat's amendment is so important, and the reason I support it, is because it does get at the crux of why we're here today, whereas the 6 bills that are rolled into the Democrats' bill today doesn't get at that. It just doesn't, it simply doesn't get at that. When you add retired police officers and honorably discharged retired veterans to the folks that can come in and help defend schools, you are actually increasing the likelihood that somebody who wants to attack them will be deterred. As Mr. Johnson of Louisiana previously recited today, the manifesto written by the shooter from Buffalo said that he was effectively looking for gun-free zones. What a school police officer presence would do would provide deterrence. And really, that is the crux of what we're talking about here today. How do you deter criminally violent people from going in and committing mass shootings and mass murders? So it seems to me perfectly rational to adopt the Shabat amendment. Now, I will add to some of the times that people do stop. People with guns do stop bad people, criminally evil people from committing heinous crimes. The Department of Justice has done studies, and one of their studies said that on average, about 1.5 million times a year, people with guns stop violent, heinous acts. In other words, they deter and save lives. They deter violence and save lives. That's what Mr. Shabat's amendment gets to. I think of a guy named Stephen Williford. He was the guy who stopped the mass shooting in its act in Sutherland Springs, Texas. I had a chance to visit with him with several other members of Congress. He said his biggest regret was that it took him 30 seconds or so to get his weapon out of his gun safe to go over and engage the demonic gunman at Sutherland Springs. He believed that had he been able to get over there even 30 seconds sooner, he would have saved 4 or 5 lives. That's important to put these things in context. The reality is we know that people with guns and their presence deters bad actors. Does it deter all bad actors? No, but it does deter bad actors. And it deters angry, malevolent people with murderous intent. That's why Mr. Shabat's amendment is so important. It actually adds to and expands the pool of people who are qualified to come in and help defend our schools. So if the crux of this is really to deter people who will shoot up schools and provide safety, and I believe that's what we're talking about here today, then this amendment is wholesale and whole on and should be adopted. But if the crux of today's hearing is something different, the way the gentleman from New York was talking about, and actually several others have talked about, is it's really to ultimately lay the predicate for taking away the Second Amendment and taking away guns, whether they be an AR-15 or whether they be a 9mm handgun. Well, then that's an entirely different matter, and that should be resolved in a completely different hearing. But if you're talking about deterrence, then Mr. Shabat's amendment should be adopted, and that's why I support it. And with that, Mr. Chairman, I yield back.
The gentleman yields back. For what purposes?